Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Please pull the mic closer to you. Thank you. Thank you. I hope you're well.
Yes, health-wise, yes.
Health-wise,
Yes.
So what else is not well?
You know, the pocket.
Well, anyway, I guess you are... Okay, so two things. First of all, I've been trying to understand the concept of gold for oil. I'm sure you've gone through the budget. Do you understand it? Does it add up for you?
Well, I might not get the full import of what they are trying to do.
Okay.
I believe that gold is also a solid substitute when it comes to holding reserves.
Okay.
That has the capacity to grow or make gains. And so, yes, I was of the view that you hold gold, and at a point when you cannot actually finance your imports to a certain extent, you can actually negotiate to do that with gold. I am not for actually going ahead to, then it comes back to the same thing. Going ahead to say that I would hold the gold, I will buy the gold with CDs, hold the gold, and then use the gold to trade.
Okay.
I don't think that is what we are trying to achieve, because that will not actually do much for us. And this cannot be done on the international market like we do with the US dollars.
Okay.
This has to be a government-to-government arrangements. Okay. Aside that, and you cannot use it for imports of other commodities, except that others have a certain product they equally want to exchange for gold.
Okay.
And the convenience of that is what we have to look at.
So if we can find a government which has refined oil,
yes,
and agree with them to exchange that refined oil for gold,
yes,
fine.
That is fine.
But because a lot of the oil that's refined that we buy, do we buy from government or we buy from private companies?
I think largely we buy from private companies. Okay. But in this instance, you would be forced to deal with the government.
Okay.
You cannot deal with private companies when you want to exchange gold.
And also I realized that it is so what they call is it bulk oil distributors. They're the one who import the refined
exactly
product.
Exactly.
So what they are suggesting, what that means is that instead of making US dollars available to them, we'll give them gold to go and buy.
No, and that is not possible. That can only be on the level of government.
Okay.
Right. So it is quite limited.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, I don't think it will make any meaningful impact.
Okay. So if we're, for example, if we're looking at building strategic stocks,
yes,
with bust,
yes,
you can use your gold in exchange for the limited oil you get for your strategic stocks.
Exactly.
But you can't give it to maybe Girl. Girl is, I know Girl is also a BBC. Go and...
No, or Girl cannot actually initiate an import, then instruct you based on their balances with you, saying that, look, pay so-and-so company for me. And then you say, okay, I'm going to pay so-and-so company with gold. It's not possible. So this is also... And we must say, and I think they somehow stated it, it's limited to government business. The main issue here is, does that mean that you have to turn on the engines of Thor?
Okay.
Because are we going for finished products?
Okay.
Or are we going for crude?
Okay.
That is also another thing we need to know.
Okay.
I think it was not clear enough.
Okay.
But what is clear is that you cannot do this with private companies. No, this has to be government to government.
Because I realize, like I said, it's predominantly because government has essentially left that market and left it in the hands of private people.
Exactly.
So majority of the time, what I understand is being done is government finding dollars from trade and giving it to these private people. They go and procure the product and come and sell here. The less dollars they are able to get, the less they buy, and that is how come the prices are being driven up at this time. But so if we're thinking, because you had always...
So in that same state, you just need to turn it around and look at it from the gold point of view.
Okay.
If you are producing about 321 tons of gold in a year, that is almost about $8 billion in value. Then what you need to do is that if Ghana should be able to buy 50% of that with its CD and use gold as a store of value over a period, your currency you have used in terms of the CD will appreciate in value. Because if your 50% purchase is going to cause a 50% shortage on the international market, that is from just you. Gold is so difficult to produce that no production since 40 years counting has exceeded 2% of international stockpile of gold. That is all the gold sitting in every reserve in this world. And therefore, taking 50% out of the market will push prices up. And that makes your currency stronger. And so I think that is what the focus should be, and not for trading purposes.
Reserve means that you are asking them to look at this from medium to long term, not immediate.
It is quite immediate. If you can find cities to buy these golds, right? What it means, our ratings and everything depends on the value of our reserve. In terms of the reserve, we hold several units of accounts. We hold some portions of maybe dollars, yen, euro, and all that. Most of the international currency, we hold all those. As part of our reserve is gold, which is valued at the current rate. So assuming gold price is up, like we had some time, recent times, where we had gold moving up close to about 2,000 US dollars an ounce, then you can imagine the value if you are holding about 150 tons of gold in your reserve.
The value you add.
The value of that alone, it's almost all the value in terms of other unit of account with currency, other currencies that we hold. Because our 321 should be valued somewhere around $9 billion. What it means to hold half of it is about $4.5 billion.
That's significant.
And that is significant.
So hold gold as reserves.
Yes.
That's the best approach.
That is the best approach, not for trade.
But I realize that the government is looking for a short-term way of dealing with this issue of refined products coming to the country, the impact this refined fuel is having on the economy. It's driving up transport prices. And I guess that's what they are trying to find, a shortcut way of perhaps dealing with the problem. Would this approach not advisable?
Well, what would you do? Would you use currency, which is of a high value, to buy something, and then that thing would come in, and then you sell it for cheap? How then do you refinance the buying of gold again? So it's actually not going to change anything.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you once again for joining us. The other thing I would just like to draw attention to briefly, I was just talking to, I know it's a major part of your observation from the budget, Dr. Joseph Obinguta. And I will come to that later because I think it's one of the biggest announcements made in the wake of the current crisis we are going through. He says that the price that will make VAT higher than duties at the port. Is that accurate? Because VAT will be 22.
Yeah.
Says duties are currently around 20%.
Yeah. Not even for all. You have some at 5%, you have some at 10%, then I think the upper limit is 20%.
20%?
Yes. Pushing VAT to 22% makes it take almost the entire space of financing purchases or imports.
Oh, okay. So it will become the biggest tax on anything.
Exactly.
Wow. But I want to understand, because you're saying that, let's say a 40-footer container of confectionery that they used to clear for about 50,000, say the duties are now closer to around 300,000. What is accounting for that?
Because quite recently they pushed up the benchmark.
Okay.
And let me explain this. You remember taking off the 50% benchmark, which means that there was already a value in there.
Okay.
For example, pig feet,
Okay.
which was, I think, about 2 cents or a kilo,
Okay.
right, has been pushed up to about $1 now.
2 cents on a kilo to
Now
$1.
to about $1 now.
That's a significant jump.
Exactly. And that is why sometimes I keep saying that our inflation is not based on what we try to push it on.
Okay.
Ukraine, Russia, it's not based on that. Someone who was supposed to pay about 25,000 in terms of duties, right, within a week after the change was done, paid close to about 100,000.
25,000
Yeah,
to 100,000. That's
Yeah.
4 times.
exactly. Now we are talking about this based on items that are probably not for production,
Okay.
but it has also affected items or articles that are meant for production.
So, which means you're talking about, in some cases, raw materials.
Yes. And and then what is so annoying about it is that that is not a true representation of prices on the international market. So people are being taxed for something they have not actually bought.
Oh, okay.
For instance, you can go on Amazon any day,
Okay.
pick a price of anything, and I would use what medical equipment that a lot of people use to check their sugar and all that. You'll be able to get some at $15,
Okay.
right? When you are bringing it in and government says that I am going to assess you on a value of $30.
So Amazon is selling it for $15.
Yes,
The assessment is for.
around $30.
Okay.
Now, what it means is that you are going to pay tax on $15 more for something you have not incurred.
When you have proof that
When
you
you
bought
have
it at
proof,
$15.
yes,
So government will price whatever you've brought in,
yes,
give it their own price,
yes,
and then charge duties on it.
exactly.
Wow, that's weird.
That's what goes on.
Oh.
And that will not stop there. You'll be sitting quietly in your office and you have a team come over and say, we are coming to assess you, again, audit you, which is a post-clearance section of the GRA. Government is the one who will assess you at the port and give you a rate.
Okay. After you've paid that rate.
After you've paid that rate and you have produced, let's say a year ago, government team from the customs end would come, sit in your office, and then claim to reassess you again.
And their basis will be?
And their basis will be that their assessment, earlier assessment, might not be the right assessment. And therefore, they are assessing you again.
That does not make sense. You did not influence the first assessment process.
Yes.
How then do they then, because it's like as if they are making you pay for their mistake.
Because
or whatever failures they have.
Because businesses have been so docile in this country. They cannot talk. And I think it is also due to the fact that a lot of businesses are owned by experts who have been branded as thieves.
Okay.
In fact, the Ghanaian tax system is more racist than any other.
Oh. So these are expatriates who, when they speak up,
yes,
they'll basically be told to shut up by the same, by maybe
Exactly.
predominantly by Ghanaians who do not understand.
Exactly.
How. Okay.
Exactly.
Well, Nii Yarboi Annan is in the studio with me. We're having a conversation on the budget. These are just preliminaries on some of the things that I've heard this morning. And of course, I think one of the major issues is the matter of the IMF. I think my time is up for a break. I'll take a break. When we come back, we have more to talk about. We'll start with the issue of VAT, because it's the one that, in fact, when we spoke to GUTA President Dr. Joseph Obing, he says, I only want to talk about VAT. That is what interests me. Why should businesses be worried about what has been done? Because we're asking for a restructuring anyway. Stay with us. Stay with us. We'll be right back. It's the Gold Morning Conversation. Our guest this morning is Nii Yarboi Annan. We started the conversation a bit earlier. If you're just joining us, thank you for joining us. We're also live on Sekpele 104.3 in Likwe. It's always wonderful to know you're doing the listening on Sekpele, the voice from afar. Nii?
Yep.
Now, first of all, before I jump into the issue of VAT, I want to hear your general impression of this budget. What were the things that jumped at you immediately? Maybe you can leave out VAT. The other things that jumped at you when you looked through the budget.
Desperation.
Desperation.
Yes.
You saw desperation of the government through the budget.
Exactly.
Where do you see a reflection of that desperation?
Well, I said the desperation because, look, this is when I really did expected austerity measures. But to the extent that you are actually throwing out policies which are clearly coming across as something which was not thought through properly, then I felt that you are losing the point.
Putting across policies that were not thought through properly.
Yeah.
I want to listen to some of those policies you've seen that gives you that impression that some of those policies were not thought through.
Almost entirely. Well, you have talked of the VAT, will come there. I have talked about the property rates being something that can be and they're unified, and they have actually done something about that. We will see the implementation of that. I have seen the increase in e-levy rates. It is not a reduction. It is an increase. Then there were some revenue measures that they put up, and I think that is around paragraph 214 to about paragraph 224 and all that, where they sought to say that capital assets, exchange losses on capital assets will not be allowed fully, but to suggest that it will be spread over a period. That is fine. What happens to exchange gains on capital losses.
Let me understand what you mean by that. You're talking about companies, perhaps if you are importing in dollars, maybe you are a manufacturer, you're importing your raw materials in dollars. What is exchange loss, and how has that been the business of government?
Exchange loss is simple. Today I am supposed to buy this particular case at $5 at the rate of 2 cedis, which means that the cost of it is 10 cedis. I entered into an agreement and everything, and then all of a sudden, when I have bought the item and I'm about to pay for it, the rate is now 4 cedis.
100% jump for you.
Yes, but in cedis, not in dollars. In dollars, the price is still
the same.
So your records that I was going to buy something, or I have bought something at $5 at the rate of 2. Now, I was given probably some 3 days credit to pay, or in the arrangement to pay, as it is in Ghana today. Every minute counts, you know, and even the following day. And I decided to pay at a later date. Now, I'm being told that it is 4 cedis. You are not going back to change the initial entry of the purchase, because at this point, the purchase is already done. What is left to be done is the payment. So on the side of payment, when the rate changes and I have to pay or find more cedis to pay for the same item, which either to only cost 10 cedis. The difference between what I had agreed to pay or have entered into contract to pay and at the point of payment, the difference of 10 cedis in this case becomes an exchange loss.
So when they are perhaps computing taxes, they will consider that?
Yes. Because this is realized exchange loss. You have actually paid for it. Right? You have actually paid for it. And then you see in that same, I think around 214 and downwards, in that same paragraph, they are mentioning that unrealized losses will no longer be allowable for deduction. This is somebody who is certainly desperate, out of touch, who have clearly lost his way.
So everything that gives some sort of cover to the businessman?
No, even unrealized losses, before this budget will be read, was never an allowable cost.
And what is unrealized losses?
Unrealized losses are the, assuming you have some money in your account, which are in dollars, and that money, at the time you put the money into your account, you had, let's use the same rates we used here for purposes of clarity. You had some $5,000. You put that $5,000 this August, let's say. In August, the rate was what? 2 cedis, assume. So you had about 10,000 Ghana cedis. Then all of a sudden, by December 31st, the rates are 4 cedis. What it means is that the money sitting at the bank, which is the $5,000, is now 20,000. You have made a gain of 10,000. But that gain, because you have actually not gone for the money, to use the money for anything, to realize it, the gain you have made is just notional.
Okay.
And therefore, we describe it as unrealized.
Okay. Okay. You haven't taken advantage
You
of it.
haven't taken advantage of it.
Okay.
If you remember, in the initial example, I said when you are making payments.
Okay.
So at that point, you have realized it. You have suffered it.
Yeah.
Everybody who have a hands-on in terms of our tax knows that unrealized losses have never, ever been an allowable cost. What I mean by allowable cost is that you are never allowed to use it to reduce your profit
Okay.
as an expense
Okay.
before tax.
Okay.
That is all. It has never been. So if you find somebody putting all this as revenue measures, then that person is desperate and out of touch.
Desperate government that needs money, but really is in some cases making proposals that you said are not properly thought through.
Let's say it for a fact, what it is. It doesn't make sense. Most of the things they have put out there does not make sense. Have we looked at the other side of capital assets where there is a possibility of a gain? In tax, the system must be equitable.
Okay.
So assuming I make gains on capital assets, are you going to defer it and say that I cannot claim it?
Okay.
Which nears to you, government, to your advantage to tax those gains because it has been realized, for instance. Why do you mention losses? Why did you not say exchange differences? So that you allow me, who makes a gain, to also spread the gain over a certain period or lifetime of that capital assets. Well, maybe we would further be informed
Of how this will work.
of what the capital assets, the full definition of capital assets means.
But as
if
far
it
as
is-
you know, because when you're talking about capital asset, what do you mean?
Well, we are looking at PPs, property, plant, and equipment.
Oh, okay. So, for example, if I have a land, a property situated on a land, if the value of that property jumps up,
Yes.
government taxes the new value.
Now, the other way that would make it more feasible for us to understand is assuming that you want to buy these computers,
Okay.
right, for purpose of usage over a period. These are assets. Now, you bought these assets somewhere in January, and then you are paying for them now because you got it on some credit terms.
Yeah.
Now, government is saying that the losses you would have made, which we have described earlier,
Okay.
you cannot claim all the losses in the year in which the losses
Were made.
but spread it over a period. So he's asking you to capitalize it. That instead of declaring exchange loss as an expense, go back and capitalize it. Already, you have a tax system that have disallowed businesses the full complement of repairs and maintenance. That is beyond 5%.
Okay.
So what they are saying is, for all the machines you are using here, if you have to repair or maintain any of them, if the residue value of these assets after depreciation or capital allowance, if you work the net book value or the carrying amount, if you work 5% on that, that is the limit.
That's how much
you can take. So assuming these are a bit older machines, and therefore you are spending more to maintain them.
Okay.
Government is saying that capitalize the rest. What it means is that defer the expenditure to other periods so that I can get more in terms of profit to tax you.
Okay. 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 So instead of declaring the entire exchange rate loss now.
Yes. He's saying capitalize it.
Oh, so you can declare some this year.
Some claim part next year, claim another. I mean,
once you continue to suffer more losses in this.
Once you continue to year on year, you'll be suffering the losses.
Oh. Wow. And for the average businessman, because right now, one of the things you talk about is about the survival of businesses.
Exactly.
That aside, this whole concept that you just put forward,
yes,
that's also a huge hit on them.
Mm-hmm. I mean, look, at the end of the day, government is increasing corporate tax as well. Maybe people are not
paying attention
to it, but there is this levy that is going to be tax after profit, and I think there is a percentage. I wanted to get to that specific paragraph so that we can be consistent. Where they have categorized most of the companies into Class A and Class B, and they are going to take taxes based on those classes. So what it basically means is that corporate tax have been pushed up already.
Corporate tax goes up.
Yes.
You can't claim exchange rate losses.
Exactly.
And then there's the issue of VAT.
Yeah.
But let's talk about VAT for a while.
Yeah.
Because I heard you say the cascading effect is 22%.
Yeah, in fact it's 21.9%.
21.9%. If you do the calculation. But the real value when you add it up is 20%.
It's I think 21%.
Okay.
It's 6 plus 15.
6 plus 15. Okay, there's a 1%. Oh, yeah.
There you have the 2.5, and then 1%.
1%, yeah.
Being GET Fund, NHIL, and COVID
levy. So COVID, they will levy us for a long time. So what does that mean to the business currently?
Well, it means that, look, clearly a lot of our businesses have huge losses this year, right? And government's own projection points to that fact based on what they are trying to do, to say that if we don't take care, we will get nothing from corporate tax. So let's squeeze them further. I had told you earlier that this budget, 1, will fail, and 2, it will collapse a lot of businesses. A lot of businesses will go out of the market.
This was even before you saw the budget.
Yes.
How did you know this was going to be the approach? But let's talk about VAT for a while.
Yeah.
Because I recall the demonstration of the businessmen in Kumasi. It was just about the matter of, they said they were enforcing compliance.
Yeah.
That was what they were doing. That was the rate then. Even the businessmen were complaining. And I recall what the Asante business owners, the executive secretary told me, that even this year, there are lots of businesses who are having to use their capitals to pay tax, to pay for VAT.
Yeah.
So if you're increasing the VAT rate, you're worsening the plight. What will be the effect of what we are looking at?
The effect is that government is fighting with businesses on margins. How much margins would you do on a box of biscuits?
1 box of biscuits.
Yes. On a bag of rice. Now, ask yourself that on any value of 100 cedis, whichever the product is, government is making about 21.9 cedis. Work backwards. Take 21.9 cedis out of 100 cedis. How much is your cost? What margins would you put on? That is supposed to satisfy your fixed costs, your variable costs, and a margin that you would use for self-gratification or further invest into the business. Now, if you take out all this field, then we are suggesting that anything being sold for 100 Ghana cedis, the real cost of it is only about 15 to 20 cedis. This is the environment of so much elevated costs in terms of doing business. So if I have to look at my costs, my expenses, and what I need to also make as a businessman for the risk of doing business, then you would realize that the entire process of doing business is to feed the fat bellies of government.
So you're suggesting that based on, let's say VAT, add VAT, put together all other costs. Perhaps if it's biscuit, I'm sure you are basically importing it.
Yes.
So which means you add...
No, let's assume you are even buying from here.
Yeah.
We have the biscuit companies here that are doing so well. It's all over our shelves.
Okay. So if you're buying from here, you're suggesting that if you look at everything with the cost and everything that you add on it, that biscuit that you're buying for 100 Ghana could as well have been bought by the person who's selling to you at around 15 cedis.
Yes.
And you say the basic thing that's driving up cost would have been VAT and other taxes put on it.
Yes. What else? The woman who goes somewhere around industrial area, either to buy biscuits and spend in terms of transportation about 10 cedis, is now spending 35 cedis. The same woman who used to rent a shop, a small shop at 100 cedis, is today paying 500 cedis. The same woman who used to pay 4% because it is a retail business is being asked to finance 21.9%. Let's understand something. The VAT that businessmen pay, they do so as finance. They are financing government business. And then they have to go back to the market and collect that at a later date without interest.
So you're making forward payments to government.
Yes.
And then you go back to the market.
Yes.
And recover the payment you have made to government.
Absolutely.
At a later date.
At a later date.
Oh. Which means you could also be taking some value losses.
Of course. Of course. So you would see huge margins. You might think that the businessman is making so much money. At the end of the day, when you look at the costs of the businessman alone, it has taken the entire field of margin. And the little left, government has also taken it.
So, having said all that, is this budget then not perhaps coming from that mindset that government has been putting forward? I've heard the president say, I think I've also heard the finance minister also say the same thing, talking about excessive profiteering. So the assumption and the constant communication that businesses are excessively exploiting the current circumstance of Ghanaians and adding margins that they are not supposed to get. Is that to say that's the assumption with which they are operating?
That assumption is unfounded and uneducative. And if I am not being overly, I don't know, but it's unwise assumption coming from a financial illiterate.
And why is assumption coming from financial illiteracy? But I've heard the president has an economics degree. The finance minister has also repeated it.
We have a lot of people with economics degree, masters and whatever. Put them to the table and put them to the test, they will all fail. There's one thing just acquiring the certificate. There's another thing knowing exactly what you are doing. Look, Sena, those who are not captured by the tax net are the people you can talk about profiteering. Not those who are going to report this profiteering, so-called, supposedly.
Okay.
Who are going to show their profiteering and also show their costs. If they are profiteering, you as a government, you should be happy. Because what they have done is to open up profits for you to tax. So let them come and tell us which companies have they gone to, either to making 21% profit, 25% profit, and are now making 100% profit. They should come with one, just one. There is an upper limit a consumer is prepared to buy any product. At least we know cars are expensive. But if I come to you to sell a Toyota Corolla to you at 200,000, you will never buy it, even if you have the money.
To be too expensive.
It is. But if I come to you and I decided to sell a fully loaded Range Rover to you at 200,000, you might consider. So there is a limit. There is a certain expectation which people cannot go beyond. And therefore, to say that, businesses are profiteering, you come and just put it there blanketly. Those who can profiteer are people who are not captured by the tax net, and therefore they are not paying VAT.
Okay.
Whereas you have put your price at 121.9, they may put their prices at 120 and still make more profit.
Because they are not being
because
taxed.
That they are not being taxed.
So you who is being taxed, if your product is selling at 121 cedis, you are still making less profit than somebody who is doing 120.
Absolutely.
Because they are not being taxed.
Absolutely. So when people want to speak to the public, I mean, they should get education, especially when it comes to economic and financial issue.
You say what you see from all the policy measures, especially those are directed at raising more revenue.
Yes.
They are desperate,
Very desperate measures.
not properly thought through.
Yes.
Now, what does that mean for businesses?
Well, it means that you would have close to 21% of our businesses, 20 to 21% of our businesses going out of business
20 to 21%.
by H1. Yeah,
That's quite too high.
it is not. In fact, I'm even being very prudent.
By the first half of 2023,
Yeah,
you're saying that if these measures are allowed to stand,
yeah,
20 to 21%
Yeah.
of businesses going
yeah,
down.
yeah. I have clients who have signaled me right to the GRA, we are ceasing business. It's no longer feasible.
There are a couple of things that come to mind immediately. Because you're talking about government itself in a desperate attempt to raise more revenue, losing revenue because the businesses that they want to tax are not there.
Yes.
You're talking about, what do you call it? The market being poorer for it. You're also talking about unemployment.
Yeah.
But you put that within the context of the budget that was read.
Absolutely.
Because one of the things government has announced is a net freeze on employment. You're suggesting that the government
And at
will
the
then
same
be
time-
adding unemployment to it.
Yes, and at the same time, killing companies private businesses that can provide employment. So it's a double-edged sword.
Because once you are out of the job market as a government, one of the things you want to do is to see how you can boost the private sector so that they can take up that responsibility that you've left.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're saying that this budget, the way it is put forward, would virtually mean that even the private man cannot employ.
What simply this budget communicates is we want to take even the rests that you have from you as a private business. Everything you have, bring it to us. This is a communist budget. We work for the government fully. Yeah.
So basically, from the way things are, all businesses will become government enterprises.
Exactly. Those of us even in the service sector struggling so much with elevated costs in terms of our expenses. Today we are being asked to bring more onto the table. And how is that? We don't have inputs like raw materials and all that. But with elevated costs, you would want to also kind of make more to satisfy those costs and maintain your margin. Before you could say jack and go to, let's say, your clients and say, I want to increase. Government have already signaled an increase in your fees. And the one you work for already knows that if I was paying so much last year, I'm going to pay more. And then you walk to the same man and say, me too, I want to increase. You can imagine. So if I am not able, right, to work with that margin that I have, the best to do is to cut back. Out of 100%, I would have about 79% accepting the increases to ensure that I'm able to stay in business.
Okay.
About 21%, close to, let's say, 30%, are going to say, look, we cannot take it any longer. We will also find alternative. What it means is that I would also go back and find alternative. I used to employ 20. Look, I'll cut it down to 15. I used to print 2 rims. I would have to cut it down to a rim. I used to put the air condition on in the office. I will have to cut it down. Where it is not possible to cut down.
So you'll be replacing your air conditions with fans?
Probably.
And perhaps opening the... Just so you can...
Just so you can survive.
So businesses will be essentially forced to make serious, significant cuts if they want to survive.
Exactly. And if you want to survive, the cuts you are supposed to make is so deep that you bleed to death.
Would that sometimes include reducing production significantly?
Exactly. With this economic environment, you cannot increase production. That is why I did say that this budget will fail.
Because I also listen to, before we come to the failure of the budget, I also listen to a sense where when you listen to the finance minister, he's also saying at the same time, we are trying to boost production. And he put forward a few proposals as to what to do.
How? Which of those can actually boost production? I mean, I don't see any of those measures boosting production. Really, I don't see it. I don't see any of those measures boosting production in any form. Not at all. I don't see any. I mean, we have the, I think, 224 paragraph. No, I think paragraph. Sorry. 0.5. Yeah, from paragraph 214, the revenue measures, right? Government has consistently indicated its intention to improve the revenue collection effort by leveraging technology, blah, blah, blah. You have the income tax regime will undergo reforms to review the upper limit for vehicle benefits, introduce an additional income tax bracket of 35%. So if you remember, the income tax we used to pay, they did have the upper limit bracket at 35%, which was taken out to, I think, 30%. They are trying to reintroduce it again. We all know the negative effect of it. A return and withholding tax rate for gains on realization of assets and liabilities, and review the optional rate for individuals for realization. I mean, capital gain tax is something which is not paid already, which we cannot monitor. Other places, individuals get to report capital gain taxes and all that because I have this asset, I have sold it. Government is not minded about the fact that you need to develop the tax system to be able to capture people and provide incentives for people to actually report capital gain. When I bought the asset, you gave me nothing, no relief. As an individual, you gave me no relief for it. Yet when I sold the asset, government says, come and declare your costs, what the residue value of the item is, then the proceeds from the sale and then pay me 15%. Even the 15%, you are not getting much. Where you might be getting is through investment.
Okay.
And that is that your target? And if you want to push it up from 15%, where and how much would that make you? Because you are dealing with a very few population in there. So you see, a lot of the things they've put here are just English. It will not pass the test of time. The 1% concessionary income tax rate will be increased to 5%, whilst provisions will be made for implementation of a minimum chargeable income system. Now, what they talk about the concessionary income tax rates are those companies and institutions that are established outside the capital, and they are the hinterlands. These were given to encourage more businesses to go.
Yeah.
Now they are saying that they are going to increase whatever rates by about 5%.
So from the 1%,
Yes.
5%.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we are getting to the point where what is supposed to be to encourage,
Yes.
maybe discouraging.
Exactly. The loss carried forward provisions in the Income Tax Act will be unified with the treatment of foreign exchange losses will be restricted to actual losses. I mean, it has always been on actual losses. It has always been on actual losses. Someone should point to me where unrealized losses in any form have been put in as allowable costs to reduce profit for purposes of tax. It has never happened. Excise tax reform will include revision of the taxation of cigarettes and tobacco products. We care less about that. There will be taxation of products such as electronic smoking devices. That is welcome.
That you agree with?
Yes. Well, and then they mentioned 218 mentioned about the value-added tax. 219 says that the benchmark discount policy will be fully phased out in 2023, while the customs regulation 2016 LI 2248 will be amended to allow for self-clearing of goods by importers at the port of entry without recourse to a custom house agent. What they are saying is, let's kick agents out of business.
Self-clearing.
Yes.
So the agents will help you clear.
Yes.
The clearing agents.
Yes.
Oh, I see.
What they are saying is, get out of business, because you will not be allowed to be for someone to declare on your behalf. So I sit in the comfort of my office and I give my invoices, bill of lading, other documentations that are needed at the port, and then you go and do the work and I pay you a fees. They are saying that it has to be already it's a self-declaration, but still, people use the services of these agents. I don't know what that actually will mean, in the spirit of burden sharing. The National Fiscal Stabilization Levy will be converted into the Growth and Sustainability Levy, name changing. That means nothing but more burden. To cover all entities. So either to the National Fiscal Stabilization Levy are paid at certain sectors and by certain companies only. Now they are saying that it will be paid by all companies. Category A entities comprising those currently paying the NFSL, and 6 additional sectors would have a rate of 5% on profit before tax.
5% on profits
Before tax. So before you get to take your corporate tax, you are being asked to pay a certain percentage as tax, as a levy on your profit, on your net profit before tax. Well, the details of it in terms of the tax itself will tell us. But what it means is that you are going to apply the percentage without having to reduce either your capital allowance and all that. You will not be allowed to make any adjustment to the profit. Whatever profit you get as net profit, right? Mm-hmm. Hit it with the percentage.
5%.
Yes, that is if that is the rate for the category B. That is category B comprising all other entities.
Wow.
Including Radio Gold.
I see. It's 53 minutes past time right now. And you see, I think when we were reading that, you said bedding sharing. That's what they say.
Yeah.
Do you see an instance in which, because you said, the government wants to help us. Yeah. First, they need to cut costs drastically. Yeah. Because Saturday, I think I read a message from Albert Otogbe, CSS, who is also drawing our attention to the fact that the president is actually, they are seeking to increase the staff level of the government of office machinery.
Yeah.
What does that tell you? Is this a government that wants to share burden at all? Because they are cutting nothing.
No. In fact, every prediction, basically, I made last Thursday had come to pass. I said they will be seeking to raise about 140 billion in terms of revenue. That is exactly what they are doing. I did say that it's most likely
spend over 200
they will
million.
spend close to 200 million. That is exactly what is happening. I think we are talking about 190 something billion that they are asking for. Wages and salaries have been pushed from about 36 to about 44 billion. You understand? And so for me, this is not a government that's
sharing burden.
Is sharing burden.
So the majority of the burden is carried by the businessman.
Exactly.
And that he also attempts to shift to the individual Ghanaian.
Exactly.
As much as he can.
Exactly. I had said that inflation will peak at 50. After the budget is read, I think it will peak at 60.
Then I want to also ask you, I know your views on the e-levy thing already.
Yeah.
You said it's an increase, not a reduction.
Yeah.
So from 1.5% to 1%, where is the increase?
The increase is the threshold they have taken off.
Okay.
So for those who are transacting 100 cedis and either two were not paying anything, will now pay 1 cedis. For those who were going beyond and doing 200 cedis, were paying 1 cedis on the 100 cedis. Now they are going to pay 2 cedis. That is about 25% increment. So it is not a reduction. They have reduced nothing.
Let me read to you. This is, I guess you know him quite well. Gabi Ochedako posting says Thursday 2022 budget is crucial. This was before the budget. It can suffer a similar fate to the 2022 budget and its revenue measures. It could completely derail negotiations with the fund if not passed. Critical to this are its revenue generation measures. We plead the NDC joins the MPP in this for Ghana. What do you think?
Well, it's not what they do in Parliament. At this point, it really doesn't matter what they do in Parliament. We have about 64 billion in terms of deficit to finance by this budget.
And that's the decision of the government.
And that's the decision of the government. Because they want to keep the same pace of expenditure. Now, this 64 billion, as of today, we don't know where that money will come from. If we do not get the program.
Even if we get the program, that doesn't guarantee us 64 billion.
Exactly. So it means that when we get the program, it is going to assist us to return onto the international market, and the recklessness continues as usual. So clearly, this is a government that says that I don't care.
But what can Parliament essentially do? Because if can't Parliament insist on expenditure cuts that are commensurate with the kind of hardship they are putting on the businessman?
Then what you are trying to ask Parliament to do is to say that sack some workers, put a stop to about 9 billion cedis that we are either going to spend on flagship programs. And at that point, I don't think that it will pass. This is a parliament that a side said that we are not going to allow Mr. So-and-so to read the budget, and in the next moment, they said, oh, we have to allow it, we have to do this. I think that, well, they should pass it.
They should pass the budget in its entirety.
But this is a finance minister who came to Parliament to say that because you held up the e-levy bill, passage of the e-levy bill, you are the sole reason why we are in this mess. And that same Parliament are going to pass this. I don't see any
other way.
I don't see any other way.
Okay. So let me conclude by asking you this question. It was the question that I said from the very beginning. They said that finance minister should stay and read the budget.
Mm-hmm.
Was it worth it?
Well, it's not worth it. I was for once expecting him to disappoint me. But as usual, he's not changed. He has nothing under his sleeve. He's not coming with a renewed mindset. And therefore, we are going to get the same results.
Failure of the budget.
Failure. It will fail.
But your message is to Parliament is pass it in its entirety.
Well, with all the disturbances, something will happen and they will all pass it.
Something will happen.
Yes, just like what happened
The last time
at Alisa.
I see. Something happened at Alisa.
With all the securities around and all that. There are two places, hotels. When you see them there and you see huge security, then you know something will happen.
One is Alisa.
Yeah, one is Alisa.
The other place is where?
The one at is a Jowlu or Billingpay, that side.
What happens there?
Well, I don't know. They meet, and when they meet, everything changes there.
I see. Will the Black Stars win?
I pray so. I really pray so. I pray that we win because Ghana needs something to hang on to. Ghanaians need something to be happy for. For a long while now. I think we have all been sad as a nation, suffering Akufo-Addo. And therefore, anything that will make the people of Ghana happy is welcome. So it is our prayers that today they will win massively.